Well, it's that time again to talk about some brand new updates. What's up, people? One Up Punch here. Going to be talking about Dead Grid's 1.0 release after Adam Boyd put out the game from early access February 4th, 2026. Going to be talking about a lot of the different changes and new areas they have, and I've been liking the new kiosk mode that they have to where if they want to do some different thumbnails when you make a video, saying for the people that want to do card games in early access or just card games in general, then you could actually use this to make some decent thumbnails to where a Dead Grid's actual logo will be on the top, bottom, and middle, as well as not at all, and just shows the Pine Valley PD Street going into the cave. When you go and play Dead Grid, you have your different classes, and I've talked about this in my other videos when I played Dead Grid in the early access versions of development. You have Leader, Commando, Enforcer, and Tactician, and these have their own different types of skills and unique abilities, as well as some other skills you could pick up later on that can get maxed out in 18 level, and that could be Sashimi, that could be Execution, that could be Power Strike, that could be many different skills. And personally, when I go for a different type of mercenary to really go out there and deal a lot of damage, it's mainly the Commando because of a specific skill that everybody loves. I've talked about this to Adam Boyd himself and people in the Discord, that Sashimi is the best skill to have, mainly because it does 3 to 5 hits with a melee weapon in one turn, and it goes off every 35%. So if you're able to get that off, you won't even need to worry about using a gun because you're doing so much damage, and if you get critical strikes, that even amounts to more damage later. The other skills when it comes down to the different classes is that, for example, you could lose 150 noise when you're in combat. You have other times where the guy will actually fix his own weapon durability without the need of using a consumable from the actual belt. Other times it'll be like a guy that has a proficiency with a melee weapon in general or even a ranged weapon. And there's different weapons in the game as well. When you talk about the different difficulties, Apocalypse and Extinction actually do not unlock when you first play the game. You have to do a specific thing on veteran difficulty to unlock that. I think it's like 5 missions for the Extinction and then Apocalypse something else. But they also have Shared Lab and Fresh Lab. Start a new lab progression tied exclusively to this playthrough, or you could do Shared Lab where if you had previous ones in the past or different like saves, you can add them all together and have the armory points upgrade more. Now, personally, when I decided to play this brand new update, I started a brand new fresh load. And the other thing was is that if you had a previous load in the past in early access, that was wiped. So just be prepared that if you're going to come back and play Dead Grid, it's going to be a fresh start. And this will be the final. So anybody's like, oh, they're going to do it again. They won't do it again. Like I said, it's not an early access right now. It's a full release title. And actually, if you go into the Steam page, which I was waiting for today, it doesn't have the early access tags. So they're not going to delete your save because they're still working on stuff. They have their Discord, and I think Adam's been trying to do some different changes, maybe a couple modifications some people asked for, like creating your actual mercenary from scratch rather than just using the normal default characters. That being said, their abilities are a little bit different. Like, for example, quick reflexes allow you to get another attack. So if Hudson goes and do Sashimi and attacks a zombie like 3-4 times, he can get another turn before the zombie goes off. Same thing for Hurry Up, except Hurry Up is for everybody. Quick reflexes is for a singular mercenary. Hurry Up is for all of them. So if they want to get their turn after they're all done, then that goes off as long as you have the action points to do it. But if people that just bought the game are curious as to how you get those skills, you go and do the missions to find the different loot or any type of quests like for Ned or Slade or Marco or any of those other ones that you find for survivors, because they're going to be the ones that give you the decent amount of items for the game. Like, for example, Jack used to be a random event that would pop off and shoot one of the zombies doing a critical amount of damage or just standard like 200 plus damage. Now he was changed into a card, so when you unlock him, you could actually use him multiple times, and I think it goes up for the more amount of intel you pump into him. So if you have 13, he has 13 times. If you have 15, it's 15 times. And I think he goes off the weapon scaling of your primary range weapon. So if you have like a gun that's 275 damage, he goes that much. Now there is a bug in this game to where he will gradually get a couple hundred, maybe even 400 per turn to be able to instantly kill any zombie. That is a bug. So if you come across that, just, have fun with it before it goes away, because I'm pretty sure that's going to be nerfed into the ground. As stated earlier, when it comes down to the new type of garage and new game hub area, it's going to be multiple different tabs rather than just the one. Then you have the region map that shows you the different locations to go to. Your squad power, which would be the power that your squad currently has for items, weapons, armor, accessories, gadgets, and so on. Then you have supplies, that would be your currency. And then you have reputation, which is also a currency, but for other like mercenary type of things, like leveling up or being able to get refreshes in the trader. Then they have the different types of quests. Now, for Jack, Slade, Ned, and Ray, they're different ones, like collecting 5-rated blood or blood in general from zombies, like specifically nurses or elites. Then you have pick up a couple items like a motor, a transmitter, or like another item such as a box of food, bring it to them, and they give you 2 items as well as supply. That was not in the early access versions beforehand. Actually, when you just do the quest, they give you like 1 item or even just supply in general. Now you have more choices to choose from. When it comes down to combat, they did change this new thing in the actual combat score called Combat Glory. And this is a bunch of different things like double kill, triple kill, Killtacular, Rampage, Road Rage, Overkill, and he'll say that when it goes off as you're doing different types of fighting and range attacks from afar. So if you get a double kill with a machine gun, he'll say that. Or sword spree, like if you slash somebody a bunch of times. Same thing with a hammer, that's hammer spree. It's actually really nice to listen to when you're doing something kind of crazy. You get that dopamine hit when you're going and kicking a lot of ass with the different squad that you have. Now, as I stated earlier, you have your different classes, and you can go up to a total of 5 different mercenaries in your entire party, with the exception of being able to make revenants, which are these zombies that help you out, but every turn degrade over time because of embalming and the process of being an actual zombie. Which in this case is that if I don't give him any corpses to eat, he'll die, and he'll go away until the actual combat ends. So they have different skills for revenants to be able to survive a little bit longer, and if you get a bunch of food for him to eat or dead bodies to eat, he'll last a lot longer as well. I wanted to do a full-blown squad of revenants, but when I was talking to Adam Boyd, he did say that they don't last very long, and that's pretty true, because they're all zombies, and the only damage they actually do is based off their base own status, or if they have like Rose or a boxing glove with like spikes on top of it. Now, when it comes down to the actual changes with 1.0, other than the new region, they have region modifiers like Dead Silence. Completing a mission with a greater silence score reduces the enemy threat at all other locations by 1. And Echoing Gunfire. Completing a mission with a greater loud score reduces the enemy threat at a random location by 5. They added 12 new region modifiers designed to reduce the enemy threat of locations, and 3 new region modifiers tied to survivors. Travel fuel is now a new system introduced with 1.0, required to reach each distant location. Fuel is automatically restocked and can further upgrade by spending intel points on Slade. The early to mid-game missions do not require much fuel. Late-game missions require a bit more planning, especially with repeats, which this game is basically going to be helping you out and grinding a bit. There are grinding segments in this game. If you're not a big fan of doing RPGs and being able to like grind up your mercenaries to get up levels and more damage for melee and range weapons, you're probably going to dislike this game. As I stated beforehand in other videos, it's a niche title. There are people that will like this, either from the zombie aesthetic or the fact that it's a turn-based RPG that you're using cards such as human mercenaries to kill an entire undead, endless zombie horde of different types of zombies with 37,000 HP, having frenzy, having resilience to where they take 50% minus damage, so if they're going to get hit by blunt, they take reduction damage or slash damage, depending upon what they are. And if they have like 32 damage and they attack you 8 times, well, then your characters are all dead and there's not much you could do about it. If it wasn't stated earlier, the game progressively gets harder depending upon the different missions that you're completing. For example, if you're doing the squad power of like 100 plus, they're going to be enemy zombies that are like 1,000, 1,500, or even 2,000 HP just starting, with the final boss being anywhere between 15,000 to 50,000 HP. Now, what is the main thing to deal with these types of zombies? Yes, you could do throwables like dynamite, frag grenade, whatever, but Molotov and fire is the best friend of any human when it comes down to a zombie apocalypse, whether it be throwing into a rotten type of corpse den or blowing up a barrel and everything dies. It's very useful to have fire. You also have different types of items for being able to increase your stamina, like drink, food, and snack. You have different weapons and items from the different tier lists, as I stated earlier. Green, blue, purple, yellow, common, which is white, and then degraded underneath that. You could also upgrade them into a higher tier using supply. Like, for example, if you have two morphine, you could actually upgrade that to a combat kit. If you have two of the same color weapon, like a sniper rifle or a crossbow, that would upgrade to blue. Similar to blue, 2 blues would be a purple, 2 purple would be a unique, and then after that you're done. Now I want to go back and talk about the intel when it comes down to the different survivors, which is a total of 15, like Ned or Slate or the farmer or like the scout, the thief, and so on, to where when you give them an intel point after you complete a mission, that they'll do different things. For example, the marksman, or Jack, well, if you put more intel points into him, which it goes up to 30, that's how many times you could use him for sniping. If you want to use a thief, they'll go and find goods for you that's of rarer quality, but with the possibility of them taking it from you and you not being able to get it. Then you have I think it's the medic or the nurse, that gives you 2 medical consumables for free rather than wasting it from your consumable belt that you'd go from the different types of mercenaries in your party. And they have 2 slots for items that are consumables. They have a melee and range weapon slot. They have accessory, gadget slot, and then they have their own type of like skill and their skill points. The skill points go all the way down with some machine gun, assault rifle, sniper rifle, shotgun. When it comes to the melee weapons, they have slashing, blunt, and shield. And shield is mainly used for tank type of builds. So if you have a guy that uses a shield that's pretty tough durability, he'll be taking most of the damage, especially if he's like an enforcer that has aggro range on him. But mainly, you're going to be dealing with all of the zombies at close range and quietly. If you decide to put that noise all the way up to 500%, it'll be a 60% chance where all the stuff that would be technically reward for the experience points would be zombies that come out to kick your ass. In terms of the new type of items as well, when it comes down to the patch notes, they have a drop boss loot. Let me remind you that if you do kill the boss, do not leave the mission. This was actually a thing that Adam Void had talked about previously in other streams I played, to where when they added this, they wanted to make sure that people got the loot after they beat the boss, because other times they just forgot about it or didn't think to look at stuff before leaving to go and finish the level. So when you go and kill the boss, it'll be an orange type of box that says boss loot on it. You go to it, like you move your character to it, it'll pick it up and give you specific rewards for that type of boss. And there's a lot of high tier stuff. I got a lot of uniques just from killing bosses. For example, I got an Uzi with a silencer on it called Smooth Criminal, and it does 244 damage on just total. Now, you can miss with a couple of shots or do a full amount if you have, like, different pills. Like, for example, they have a survivor that gives you double damage or never misses on ranged weapons, and that could be used to lose noise. It's 5 noise lost every time you shoot somebody with that specific gun. Now, if I do the Delta Force type of M4, and I shoot somebody with that without a silencer, I gain plus 10 noise. And the highest cap when it comes down to the noise level is 60% of a card coming out, which is pretty high for something that could be very tough to kill. Sometimes it'll be 1500 health, other times it'll just be a normal 500 zombie with like multi-attack. And they could do double damage, sometimes they could double attack you, or if you have Mort, he'll just beat their ass instead. They added some more uniques as well, like the Sheriff, HEP 45S, Duskfang, which looks like an MP5, and then Mafioso, which is another SMG kind of Uzi with a silencer on it. They have the Log Splitter, which I think wasn't an axe in the game besides the fire axe and the normal hatchet. Then they had some other ones like the Cold Eye and the Rat Line, which was an MP7 with a suppressor on it. Now, there's a question to Adam Void, and this mainly pertains to crafting. When I crafted a melee weapon, such as a sword, when I did 2 blues that were like 50 damage, and I crafted a purple, it went down by like 4 damage. I don't know if that's because it's completely random or if it's an actual bug in the game. And there were a couple, like I said, when it comes down to like the visual effects. There was one to where I couldn't end the turn after I killed all the zombies, but after about 3-4 turns, I finally got to go and complete the level because it was trying to refresh the different cards that weren't activating all the way. But these are just minor issues when it comes down to the 20 plus hours I put into the 1.0 update. I've liked a lot of the different changes he put into 1.0 and all the different changes from the earlier days of early access. If you actually remember, people had played this game other than myself, that when you looked at the cards first, all of the wording was scrunched together and there was no color-coded type of words like orange, red, green, blue, whatever. It was all together, so you couldn't tell what the hell was going on, and reading it was almost impossible. Ever since those days, he's improved upon it with borderline stuff, being able to make the cards easier to read, being able to scroll just using the mouse wheel and seeing all the different types of effects, being able to have a better combat encounter and a less cluttered hand because ammo actually has its own type of button. On the bottom left side of the screen where it has a shotgun shell, that is your ammo pile. If people played this game in early access, if you had ammo, it was all in your hand. So your hand was always full all the time. You didn't have any place to put it. Now that is in the pile by itself on the button. If you need ammo, you just press it. It doesn't cost anything. And then when you have the action points to do it, you reload the gun that you need to. And that's actually how it works now with 1.0. The other new thing with 1.0 is the new non-merc turn abilities, like, for example, Toughness, Street Cred, and some other ones. Street Cred actually gives you 5 reputation, while Toughness gives all your mercenaries 10% additional health, I think as a temporary thing. Another change was the Armory Upgrades points rework. For example, when they did this change, cards with Armory point rewards are no longer drawn in hand during combat. Points are still collected and consolidated on the loot hall screen as a summary. The thought behind this change was to reduce card clutter in hand and also give an easy reference of collected Armory rewards when returning to camp. The Armory UI also has been improved with better tooltips and small tutorials. For example, they have an area to where there's survival, Armory, and virology. Virology is actually the one that you can go and make your revenants. Then they have Armory to where you can increase the level or upgrade your different types of melee and range weapons that come from points. When it comes down to getting more of those points, you have to score those kills using those specific weapons, like the blunt weapon of a 2x4. For example, when it says down to the About section for the Armory, allows you to upgrade non-unique weapons to higher item levels. Scoring kills with weapons during missions grants a chance to find Armory points within the same weapon category. So like I said, if you're going into a mission and you have Hudson using a sword or a mail order katana, then he gets a bunch of Armory points from using that specific weapon because it's a sharp weapon. Or using a hammer, monkey wrench, or 2x4 would be a blunt weapon, and that would go for that specific category of blunt access weapons. Before I forget, towards the end of the video, my personal opinion about Dead Grid is this. If you're looking for something that's a turn-based RPG, using cards that allow you to find different items such as steroids, health kits, dynamite, frag grenades, new different types of weapons and armor, different gadgets and accessories, leveling up your mercenary, and even being able to take body parts and make your own type of zombie, I highly recommend people picking up Dead Grid, but that's just me, and I got almost about 80 hours in the game currently right now. I went from 56 hours in early access up to about 76 when I played the actual 1.0 update. I was originally waiting for more of the new stuff to come out so that I could see what everything would be there to play when everything got wiped, and I'm pretty satisfied with what I've seen so far. The game Dead Grid has a sale of 20% off until February 18th, 2026, so it's about $10.38 where I'm at. If you want to get it for cheap or even a full price of $13, like I said, I highly recommend people trying it. It was made by a singular developer named Adam Void, and personally, I'm glad that I got to play his game and give him the money for when I first bought Dead Grid itself. And I'm going to be streaming more of it later on. I have some other things to do and some other things to kind of figure out before I can get back on and hopefully continue and be consistent with a stream schedule. Like I said, with 2026, I do want to get on and play at 11 a.m. CST. It's just I have to get up, go to work, come back and be on for a specific time or even be able to get enough sleep, but it will eventually happen. I've gotten on a couple of times already, one time to play for almost 8 hours and another time for 6 hours, just playing Dead Grid itself. And playing a card game again has reawakened my interest within it, because beforehand I wasn't sure if I wanted to talk about a bunch of different card games, mainly because I didn't know if it was a niche that I would have a lot of fun and enjoyment doing. But after Cubic Cosmos, I've been liking it every day, and Dead Grid's definitely going to be another game that I play a lot of. If I didn't state it earlier, when it comes down to my channel on Twitch and YouTube, it didn't start from playing Elite Dangerous or Hunt Showdown. It actually came from playing early access games in general and playing card games, like when I played Nightbanes, Altial Horizons, Shadowverse, Hearthstone, and even RuneScape Chronicles. There was a bunch of different ones, but mainly Infinity Wars was that PvP type of card game that I was really interested at the time, and met some other people like Lateralis and Silver Star. That being said, coming back and playing other card games that nobody really knows of and talking a little bit more in depth about them definitely has made me want to do more videos and play the card games that I want to talk about but never was able to beforehand. So now that Dead Grid's in 1.0, I can't wait to see what more stuff Adam Void does. I heard that there was some snippets here and there in the Discord about possibly getting custom mercenaries and maybe even some new modifications or additions with mechanics in the game later, but I'll keep people posted in shorts and other videos when that happens. But anyway, that's all I got for the 1.0 update. I'll see people later in the streams when I play the game a couple more times, because I'm still not done with doing everything in it and getting all my characters to really high level. So with that being said, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.